Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of On Point for today, Friday, the 28th day of October 2023. The 27th? Well, I'm jumping ahead of time. The 27th, I've been told. Yes, 27th of October. My goodness, well, that's fine. Hey, listen, time is moving so fast, so I'm getting ahead of time too. That's okay. But just to be corrected, today is the 27th day of October 2023. And indeed, it is my pleasure being here once again with you for this program called On Point. My name is Alexis Jeffers, and of course, we have said in the past, and I'm going to say it again, that it is always my pleasure coming here to spend my lunch hour with you. And indeed, we have been around for just a few months, but of course, persons continue to meet me daily, weekly, and saying to me that they have been listening and they continue to listen. And I want to say thank you to all those who have found us on Von Radio 860 AM and on the FM band 93.7 FM, that is. I want to thank you. Also, those who follow us via Von Radio on YouTube. And indeed, all of those platforms are available to you, and we want to thank everyone who continue to tune in. We are a program that are about disseminating information. There are different styles to the program from week to week, and of course, any day we can come here and talk politics, we can talk social issues, we can be entertaining in some way, but whatever it takes, the variety and the flavor that we bring is what we are more interested in ensuring that your lunch hour is one that is well pleasing after we are done with our program. At this time, let me just greet persons who are celebrating at this time. I don't think I have anyone who are celebrating on my list, but of course, if you're celebrating a birthday today, well, I am extending a birthday greetings to you and wishing you all the best for the rest of today and beyond. And celebrate like it's the last one you're celebrating. Not saying that it will be, but you want to make sure that you're celebrating at a level where you can tell yourself that you had a fabulous birthday celebration. These days, things are so fragile, and there's some fragility to life, and persons are leaving us every day. And we want to make sure that once you get to that point, you don't have any regrets, so enjoy your birthday, if I can put it that way. We don't want to think about these things, but of course, these are the realities of life that we're dealing with. Of course, speaking of persons who have departed, I want to say to the general public, and also more so to the persons who live in the St. James area, that tomorrow afternoon we'll see the funeral service for Vera France, and that is Maga. Those of you who are more familiar with that name, her nickname or her pet name, however you want to call it, Maga will be laid to rest tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. over there at the Combomere Methodist Church. So let us go out and show our last respect, and also be there with the family to lend some support tomorrow. I believe it started at 2, but of course, they said there's viewing and that thing. So I would say from 1 p.m. viewing, or 1:30 thereabout. But of course, the funeral service starts at 2 p.m. and we'll see what that is like tomorrow. Indeed, I just came into the studios, and outside we had some rain within the last half an hour. There's some moisture in the air, and when that is the case, we are always happy for that, because any shower of rain is needed at this point in time. And moving onwards, we have had a very rough summer. At least even before the summer, we've had some difficulties with rainfall since, I believe, February thereabout of this year, February, March. So we've had our challenging time. So any rainfall that we get between now and the end of the year, it would be welcome. Sometimes we get so much rain we start to complain. When it gets hot, we complain. When there is no rain, we complain. And there's always some complaint about something. But these are showers of blessings, and the blessings of the Lord that is coming down on us. And we are thankful for that. But of course, it looks like we'll get some more rain throughout the course of the day. And we just want to thank the Almighty for all of his blessings. And speaking of the weather, this morning, I journeyed down to Indian Castle. I wanted to see what is happening with the fruit orchard down there. Because we've had some rain, we've had some wind, and we've had some adverse weather conditions over the last couple of weeks, couple of months thereabout, because we've had some showers and some wind and unexpected weather patterns. And indeed, I went down to have a look. And believe me when I tell you, down there is blooming at this point in time. The weather has been wonderful for that fruit orchard, and all of the farmers around Nevis, I'm sure, are happy for the rain that we're getting. Indeed, when we had those high winds a few days ago, some persons may have lost some of their crop, especially banana farmers. But down at Indian Castle, the coconut trees are fruiting at this point in time. There's some large enough coconuts on those trees down there, not ready to be harvested yet. And I always say, even though we talk about these things on radio, I am asking persons to refrain from going down to remove anything from that farm. Well, if you want something, you may want to ask, but of course the government itself will have to realize some return on their investment. Some significant investment was made in that orchard farm in terms of the purchase of plants, in terms of the purchase of drip for the irrigation purposes, in terms of water that is being used down there. There's a huge water consumption down there. Maybe not so much now, but in the past over the summer, to keep those plants going. And of course the workers who have to maintain the surroundings down there, or the orchard on a whole. They have to get equipment, they have to get fuel, they have to get strings for their weed eater, and indeed they have to be paid a wage salary in some cases. So indeed there is an enormous amount of expenditure that is expended down there. So whatever items are available down there, at some point they will be for sale, and I want the Nivision public to patronize the Department of Agriculture, who is spearheading that project. I also want to say that indeed we have been hearing about 25 by 25. What that means is that there is a policy, the CARICOM has adopted this policy whereby they're seeking to eliminate the importation of certain products into the Caribbean or into CARICOM by 25% over by 2025, the year 2025. What that means is that items such as poultry, certain agricultural products will be produced at a level whereby countries will reduce those imports. Now, down there at the fruit orchard in particular, we would have concentrated about 2 years ago, two and a half years ago, on the production of jelly. Coconuts, let's say coconut, but we are more concerned about jelly water, for example, because we know jelly water is imported from, not jelly water, yes, is imported from Trinidad, but jellies in terms of the raw fruit itself is imported from countries such as Dominica and St. Vincent. And we believe that we can produce at that level here. If those of you who are old enough would recall that in the past, we used to produce what is called copra, dried coconut. Those are the larger coconuts though. We used to have those dried and packaged and sent off to Dominica, for example, where they would use the oil to make things like soap or different oil-based products. Obviously, that is not being done now. Obviously, those traditions were, they have gone into extinction, so to speak. I want to say that in terms of jelly water, we can produce enough from that same field down there at Indian Castle to eliminate the importation of jelly into Nevis. And that is what we are seeking to achieve. Of course, the poultry side of it, that is something that the Minister of Agriculture, the Honourable Eric Evelyn, will report on accordingly. But of course, there are plans afoot, and there are plans that are pretty much in the makings to construct the necessary building to house the equipment where the production or the slaughtering and packaging of meat, poultry meat products will be done. So that will be something to look forward to in short order. Plans are really being finalized in that regard. But the Newcastle or the Indian Castle Fruit Orchard, I believe, is going to be a major player in terms of eliminating the importation of jelly and jelly water into the island of Nevis. So I went down there and I was pleased to see what is happening there in terms of the health of those plants down there. And for years to come, we'll be talking about that particular investment down there. But I bring it out because the weather is cooperating these days, and that is what was so obvious down there with the looks of things down there. That being said, of course, last weekend we were visited by I wouldn't say Hurricane Tammy, but some hurricane force winds were upon us, mostly tropical storm winds and some rain. Most persons seem to be disappointed that Tammy didn't come this way, but I followed some of the comments on Facebook and other social media platforms. Well, I will say, I don't know who these folks are, but I will say, in my case and in most persons here on the island of Nevis, many of us have gone down on our knees and have thanked God for sparing us from Tammy. As a matter of fact, there's a saying, who have cocoa in the sun look for rain. So those of you who have your house and was concerned about, the challenges that can ensue if there is a hurricane that passes our way, meaning damage to your roof, damage to your property, damage to anything you have. Those of us who are thinking along those lines and didn't want to deal with the aftermath, we're very happy that the Lord would have spared us. And you see that Hurricane Tammy, it was not a substantial hurricane in terms of the category. I think it was a category 1 when it passed to the north and east of us. And I want to throw my mind down to Mexico, for example. I think that, to be specific, there is a resort town called Acapulco, I think it is, in Mexico, a resort town. They were visited by one Otis, Hurricane Otis. And I will tell you, based on the news items and the readings that are out there, or the information that is out there, it was just in a few hours that hurricane would have ramped up from a category 1 to a category 5. And that brings me back to Dominica some years ago. I think it was 2017. Where I believe it was Maria, one of those hurricanes, was a category 1, and by 8:30 that night, just in the space of a few hours, that would have had an onslaught on Dominica. The same thing happened down there in Mexico, in Acapulco, I believe it is, yes. They had to deal with a category 5 hurricane when, in truth and in fact, a few hours earlier, it was just a category 1 hurricane. And the devastation that has been left behind, I'm telling you, you look at some of the pictures, hotels are destroyed, crops are destroyed, people are displaced, people are homeless. As a matter of fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, about 22 persons may have lost their lives. 20 something, well, 20 plus, yeah? And of course, the numerous amount of persons who are homeless at this point in time. And you know what can happen after a hurricane? You have all of the different health hazards that present themselves after a hurricane. So when I think about that, and I think about what we would have avoided here in the Leeward Islands, so to speak, because I believe Barbuda would have had some challenges there, but nothing compared to what they had to deal with back in 2017 as well. So that, I believe, we have to be thankful for. And those who felt disappointed that the meteorologists and those persons who are responsible for disseminating weather reports, it seems as though some people were calling for them to be sacked or fired or whatever because they keep coming with information that is not true or not accurate. And that is not the case. There is absolutely no one out there who can predict what these hurricanes can do. What we are getting is someone who is coming to us with the best information they have at hand. And they're giving us the best possible track that is available. As a matter of fact, if we can cast our minds back, one of the track of Hurricane Tammy was heading dead over or straight over the island of Nevis and St. Kitts, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that did not happen because of some weather system that may have lifted that storm. And it was like the hand of God that lifted it, not just the weather system as they call it, a trough or some other thing or some other weather system. But that was the case, and we avoided what could have been some challenges here on Nevis. And so I want to say today that I don't know if all of the assessment have been completed, but we had a lot of guts that were running. Some would have overflown these culverts and so forth around the island. So water would have ended up on the road, and there were debris on the road. And of course there were farmers, as I said before, who had their challenges where they lost some crops. But of course we didn't lose any lives, thank God. I don't know if anyone would have had any major damages to their properties. Those will be ascertained during the assessments that would be done or are being done. But of course some people had to deal with water in their house. I believe if you had to deal with some water in your house, well, hey, that is better than losing a roof. And of course, some persons who are fearful of hurricanes, who may have lived through hurricanes, I'm sure they were trembling that night and worried and probably pulling their sheet over their head or even in a corner somewhere trying to hide from the storm. I'm making light of it, but it's a serious business. So I just want us all to realize that we would have averted something that could have been more than what it turned out to be. And if it is, that is the case moving into the future, I want us to prepare. The notice is given out, the advisories are given out. Yes, prepare as if a storm is coming and continue to pray that they'll go elsewhere. And that is basically what I want to impart at this time regarding these storms, because there have been quite a number of them that are were heading towards us, and indeed they would have headed elsewhere, all because of the praying nation that we are, and all because, if not for God. And we want to thank the Almighty for his blessings in that regard. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on quickly, because of course it's just an hour that we're here. And indeed, I just want to touch on an event that is coming up on the 25th of November. Well, if I may say, the 25th of November is my birthday as well too. So I said it early. But this event is a pork and beer festival that will be held over there at Whitehall. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because there's a good friend of mine over there in Brick Hill by the name of Jarif Jeffers. About 3 years ago, he asked me about an event that he can put on with his team. He has a team, or they have a group called Link Promotion, and he said that they wanted to put on an event and just to say that they are doing something in the community. And I gave them this particular idea, Pork and Beer Festival, and it came off in a resounding fashion back in 2019. 2020, I don't think it was held, but 2021, 2022, and of course they're coming back now again in 2023. And Jarif have his team, persons like Jamal, Jadim, Tyree, Jadel, Rikel, Kenroy, Chrisley, Elijah, Shanice, and Tijano. All those folks come together, and they are young people who have come together and have decided they are putting on this beer festival for a third time. And here, when we say pork and beer festival, the concentration will be on pork as the meat that will be sold over there. And pork will be done in different styles, whether it's barbecue, whether it's jerk pork or roast pork, or some say dudong pork. You all know the old time when the old people used to do it, you know, in a Doven pot, you call it, I believe. That used to be so delicious and smells so good. But on the 25th, Saturday the 25th, up there at the old Whitehall Hard Court, and they're saying they'll have a large, a big amount of entertainment will be up there, and lots of entertainment. DJ Wet Dot, they'll have Odyssey Band, Grandmasters, they'll have Speedy, Selector Bobby, and also DJ Toby. All those folks will be there providing some entertainment throughout the entire day. So this event starts at, I believe, around 1 o'clock in the day. I don't see a time on the poster, but then again, the poster have on that it will be updated accordingly. So they'll have a pop-up happy hour. Well, of course, at any particular time, they will be able to have a happy hour where you buy one, get one free, whatever the case might be. They'll announce all that accordingly. But it will be fun for the entire family, and it will be an all-day event, all day on the 25th, Saturday 25th of November up there at Whitehall. You'll hear more about it, but I just thought I'll I'll put that out there. It's a month away, and time goes very quickly. So at least we get that out for now, and then we'll speak about it another time as we go along. And that's it for that portion. Now, also, I want to say that Culturama 50, the slogan is out. That has been selected, and the person who was awarded for that slogan, in terms of the person who penned that slogan, is Miss Carmel Allen, former Queen contestant here on the island of Nevis. She, I believe, became Culturama Queen back in 1980, if my memory serves me right. And the slogan for next year's Culturama will be, or is, celebrating culture, embracing history. It's Culturama 50. I'll go over that again. Celebrating culture, embracing history. It's Culturama 50. So Carmel Allen, congratulations. You have done a marvelous job in terms of presenting this particular slogan. So from this year into next year and beyond, we will know that Culturama 50 slogan was penned by Carmel, or Miss Carmel Allen, former Culturama Queen. And I want to congratulate her once again. But in terms of Culturama 50, I want persons to start thinking. If you haven't, start preparing. And when I say preparing, the feeling and thinking is that we will have a huge influx of nationals and non-nationals into the island of Nevis. Of course, if they come, they want to stay somewhere, or they have to stay somewhere. So those who have guest houses, who have additional rooms, you may want to start cleaning those up, preparing those in advance for that period of time. I anticipate some people will be coming for a week. Some may come for 2 weeks. Some may come for a month. It all depends on what time they would have on their hands. And I know people are already preparing. There are many families who are intending to have, call it a reunion here on the island, meaning large families are going to come, family members are going to come home and be among each other, or be with each other. So indeed, they would have to find somewhere to stay. So those of you who have places that can be prepared for such, please go ahead and do that and make some money. Those of you who have car rentals, for example, if you have to get additional vehicles, do that. Those of you who have entertainment spots, you start to prepare your entertainment spot to entertain all of the folks who are going to come here. Because when persons come to the island, they want to make sure that they're here not only to be a part of Culturama, but to make Culturama great as well. And making Culturama great will be also having fun and being a part of all of the activities that will present themselves next year. So if you have a place of entertainment, go ahead and have it prepared. Paint it up, nice it up. Even in Charlestown, those of you who have businesses in Charlestown, you can see this as an opportunity to spruce up your place, clean it up, paint it up, and make sure that we're presenting a wonderful scenery for Culturama 50. It is meant to be a big one, and it should be a big one. God spare life, we should all be able to present something big to all citizens, residents, visitors, non-nationals, all who intend to come. And that is what I want to impart over the next couple of months, or whatever the case might be. You will hear more, because I can recall in 2014 we would have gone all out for 2014. That was the 40th anniversary. We went all out. I remember when we got into government in 2013, we started all of the planning. We did some work in Charlestown, made a difference in Charlestown in terms of the ambience, the aesthetics, and all kind of things in Charlestown. We really did a marvelous job then, and equally we'll do such a job this time around and even surpass what we did in 2014, because a 50th anniversary comes around once. And like they say, you only get one opportunity to create a first impression. So we want to create a very good first impression when people come home 2024 for Culturama 50. So I leave that and move on from there. And I want to just go back to Hurricane Tammy quickly, because last week I had Mr. Brian Dyer here, who is the director at the Nevis Disaster Management Department. And he came in, and the information that he imparted, I'm sure, was well, valuable to those who were listening. And indeed, I want to thank him for coming to make his presence felt. But also, by the same token, let me also thank all of the stakeholders, all of the volunteers who would have made themselves available throughout the period that they were manning that particular emergency operations center over there at Long Point. Persons who were there throughout the night, or the few nights that they had it open, and I want to thank all of them. And I do so as a citizen of Nevis, because I was there as the Minister of Disaster Management before, and I know it is a challenge to get persons to come on board. So when persons come on board, it is always fitting to give them thanks for their effort, and thanks for coming out and doing what they are prepared to do for the island of Nevis. And that is what you call community service, national service to some extent too, yeah? So I think we have covered all those bits of information, and now we go on to something else. I believe most of you would have been following the news in recent days, where apparently there have been some information circulating regarding our citizenship by investment program. Indeed, this program has come under scrutiny over the years, and it has had its challenges. Some of it may be placed at our feet here in the Federation, and a lot of it has been external, because this program has been productive for us here as a Federation, and many other countries in the OECS in CARICOM have also come on board since St. Kitts Nevis. And I will say, for historical data, most of you must know that St. Kitts Nevis would have been the first country here in the Caribbean, if not among worldwide countries as well, who would have started this program back in 1984, I believe. But of course, in recent years, it has gotten a lot of prominence, a lot of attention, and of course, some monies have been made. We are hearing some money's been floated around, billions of dollars. Of course, we put that aside, but here is what I want to touch on this afternoon, because obviously the program has come under tremendous pressure in recent years from the United States, from the European Union, from Canada, all those major countries that have that type of power. You know, they tend to come after what we have to be successful here in the Caribbean, but more so in St. Kitts Nevis. I go back to our financial services sector. That was doing great in 2000, early 2000 up until 2004, 2005, thereabout. It was a prolific, economic activity for us here in Nevis, of course, and by extension the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Indeed, over the years, a lot of different challenges have been encountered by the financial services sector, where Parliament would have been called into play on many occasions to amend laws, to adjust laws, and make new laws as well, so as to be in compliance with the various agencies out there who feel that we are using the program for nefarious reasons. At least we, as a developing country, must find ways to generate revenue for our country. And of course, every time we come up with something that works, we find that the larger countries would come after us as smaller entities and put that added pressure on us, because what? I do believe they think that we should not be prosperous in any way. As a matter of fact, you would have heard many persons who object to some of the things that are being thrown at us would suggest to you that perhaps those larger countries are thinking about at some point maybe recolonizing our small islands. But they would have made enough out of us in the past, and they come back now perhaps to subject us to their rules, so as to put that amount of pressure on us so that they can come back and recolonize. But if they have access to amend, they have access to address, or access to look at our program in such a way so as to bring about the type of stability, and also to ensure that we are saving the program, of course, as a mature nation, we have to do what is necessary to ensure that we can maintain these programs. Dominica have their issues, Antigua and Barbuda have their issues, Grenada, St. Lucia, all of these countries that are engaged in this particular program have been singled out. St. Kitts Nevis, of course, is one of them. And I will say that we as a nation have to come together and ensure that all of us are singing the same tune when it comes to this program. I shudder to think what would happen if St. Kitts Nevis passport program, call it passport program, CBI program, whatever you want to call it. I shudder to think what would happen if we don't have this program tomorrow. And that is why it's important, whether you're in government, whether you're out of government, this program have benefited the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis in some shape and form. We may say in Nevis we are not getting enough, and that might be true. But little is much. If we don't get what is rightfully yours, it doesn't mean that we should call it down and say it should be stopped, or it should be derailed, it should be abandoned. I will say to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, but more so Nevis, there was a point in time when Nevis was getting nothing, zero. If we want to call a loan something, well, it's up to you, because I see a loan as being a burden, a liability. But since 2015, we have gotten little, we deserve more, and we have been asking for more. But of course, some may say we have gotten what, 500 million? Some may say we have gotten 400 million, whatever the total is, or whatever the amount is. I drive around Nevis every day and I see what that money has done for the island of Nevis. You look at St. Kitts Nevis in general, you can see what the money has done for St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, some may say there have been mismanagement. All those are debates we can have internally. No doubt about that. But I can tell you by and large, this program has been a major financial earner for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I will say that from the Nevis standpoint, if you look at the Wally Water Taxi Facility, you look at the Treasury Building down in Charlestown, to some extent the police station, you look at roads in Hanley's Road, you look at the infrastructure throughout Nevis, we would have gotten some money for the water upgrade, or the upgrade of the water network or the pipe network throughout the island of Nevis from the SIDF. You look at communications network that we would have been able to purchase for NASPA. You look at all of the things that have happened in Nevis, and you tell yourself that whatever amount we have gotten would have gone to good use here on the island of Nevis. We need more, and there's no doubt about that. As a matter of fact, and when I speak, I'm not talking and knocking any body in St. Kitts per se, because history has been made and history is there for us to see. And no one in the current Labour administration can say that I am knocking them or coming at them. All I'm going to say is that history has already been made, and those who were there before know exactly what would have transpired. Those who are there now know exactly what is happening. And I want to say to all who would have had a chance to sit in the Prime Ministership in St. Kitts, whether it was Dr. Kennedy Simmons, whether it was Dr. Denzel Douglas, whether it was Dr. Timothy Harris, and now Dr. Terence Drew, that of course Nevis have been shut out in the past to a large extent. But of course there is something coming now. I believe we get just about $5.5 million at this point in time. But the point I'm trying to make to Nevisians, when we start asking where the $500 million gone, I think based on what you're seeing coming out in terms of numbers, you should be asking when are we going to get the rest of the money. And this is just me, Alexis Jeffers, speaking, and speaking my own opinion here. Because I am not saying that I'm calling out any existing government in St. Kitts, but I'm speaking to my Nevisian people that when we start talking about this, what we have gotten, we should be asking when the rest is going to come, and that would be a legitimate question to ask. But I'm not going to pursue that this afternoon, in the sense that what we are more concerned about is what is being done, what has been done, and what is being done to ensure that we are saving this program. And that is why I want to single out, as a Nevisian, single out the Honourable Mark Brantley this afternoon. Because Mark Brantley, the Honourable Mark Brantley, was the Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2015 until 2022. Let's say just about 7 years. And I want to say as well, and this is Alexis Jeffers speaking, and I believe I will have a majority of support behind me when I say that Mark Anthony Graham Brantley was and still can be considered one of the best Minister of Foreign Affairs that this country has ever seen. And I say that and I mean it. And why I say that is because the exploits of Mark Brantley, in terms of the challenges that this program has had over the years, he has demonstrated that he had what the temperament, and he went about his business to ensure that his program was saved during those 7 years. And the results are there to show. And I can go through some of the information here because I normally document as I go. And no matter what might be said about the Honourable Mark Brantley, I'm here to say to you that if the Honourable Mark Brantley was the Minister of Foreign Affairs today, I will say to you that perhaps some of the challenges may have been dealt with a long time ago. I'm not saying that the current Minister of Foreign Affairs is not doing what he should do. I'm not saying that, but everyone has an opinion, and I'm voicing my opinion simply because many times we castigate persons for various reasons, and we never give them a chance, or we never take the chance to commend them for their work and what they would have done to save a program such as the Citizenship by Investment program. I can recall that when the Honourable Mark Brantley became the Minister of Foreign Affairs back in 2015, we had a fiasco just before 2015. You know, many of you would remember that fiasco with Canada, whereby there was this gentleman by the name of Magadam who would have entered Canada and said he had a diplomatic passport and was there to see the Prime Minister of Canada. Many of you remember that, and it was proven not to be so. But what became of that was that we lost our visa-free access to Canada. Many of you remember that. And these are historical facts that neither you nor I can erase because they're there. And many of us fail to talk about these things and remind ourselves of these things simply because we perhaps have a political agenda. But my agenda this afternoon is to show that every effort has been made over the time the Honourable Mark Brantley was there as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and his effort and exploits would have helped to save this program. And I'll say to you, there was never a point in time where there was any scandal regarding the office of the Honourable Mark Brantley and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs when he was there as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, that is. I believe I must commend him and the staff he had working with him. I believe she's still there, the Permanent Secretary Bass, I forget her first name, a very professional lady, along with all those who work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs there on St. Kitts. Some divisions are there too, but I will say to you that the Honourable Mark Brantley would have done everything in his power then, dialoguing with Canadian officials. And every time he speaks, he has always mentioned that we are seeking to work, or we are working with the Canadian counterparts to ensure that we can reinstate. And of course, that has been done. In recent times, if you can recall, that the Canadian government would have announced that they are reinstating, to some extent, this visa-free access. Well, there are conditions though. Huh? Someone who have a U.S. visa currently can enter. Those who have never had one, I believe you have to apply and submit your application to the Canadian embassy there in Trinidad. Now, the facts about that is that, of course, over the years he was working on that, and we have had some relief in that regard. And the current Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Denzel Douglas, I heard him thanking the Honourable Mark Brantley for the work that he did, because it was nothing that was accomplished within a month or two, or even 1 year. It was years. As a matter of fact, part of the process, and one of the things that was done when the Honourable Mark Brantley was there as the Minister of Foreign Affairs was the establishment of a Canadian High Commission. First time ever. And I believe St. Kitts and Nevis might be the only country with one such position in Canada. The High Commissioner Truss, Sherry Truss, is still there in Canada. And of course, further to that, to show that we had good faith and goodwill, I recall in cabinet, while I was there as a minister, I'm not talking about cabinet business, but this particular property was available for purchase in Washington, D.C., And that was eventually purchased by the federal government so as to house the St. Kitts and Nevis embassy there in Washington, D.C. All these things suggest that a country is serious about international relationship, serious about international affairs, and serious about geopolitics. And that is why you have to give Mark Brantley some credit, because he brought it and he saw it through to the point where that property was bought, and it now houses the St. Kitts and Nevis embassy there in Washington, D.C. And so that is certainly something that I have to mention, and I wanted to mention. Well, not only that, in order to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis passport was respected globally, we all remember those days when Mark Brantley used to come here and talk about the the establishment of diplomatic ties with certain countries, and people asking, what are we doing talking to such country or such countries? I mean, but these are things that were done to ensure that the passport that we carry, the St. Kitts Nevis passport, was respected globally, was sought after globally, and it certainly enhanced the program in terms of the returns and the demand for a passport. And so the diplomatic ties that were established, I believe there were about 44 countries under the Honourable Mark Brantley that were engaged, and diplomatic ties were established with these countries. I mean, some of the countries: Belarus, Bolivia, Croatia, Cyprus, Dominican Republic, Kenya, Kosovo, the Maldives, Mauritius, I can go on and on, Mongolia, the Gambia, Senegal, Turkmenistan, Ethiopia, Qatar, Moldova, Armenia, Mozambique. Those are some of the countries that I have listed that were engaged, and diplomatic ties were established under the Honourable Mark Brantley. So those I say are important to the overall program that we continue to rely on. Well, there are other countries, of course, Gabon, Mozambique, I just said, San Marino, Serbia, Rwanda, Palestine, North Macedonia, Cambodia, Honduras, Jordan, Sri Lanka, Cameroon, Egypt, Zimbabwe, Sudan, Uzbekistan. All these countries, efforts were made, and that was part of the agenda and part of the mandate of the Honourable Mark Brantley, which was to establish these diplomatic ties so as to spread our diplomatic footprint throughout the world. And that is why when we hear about these pressures that are being brought by the EU, we have to ensure that we are all in this together to ensure that we are protecting what is ours. As a matter of fact, in terms of visa-free access, those are diplomatic ties where we said we are establishing those relationships. But separate to that, visa-free access was achieved with over 30, or just about 34 countries. 34 countries during the Honourable Mark Brantley's time. Sometimes when you say someone is traveling out, what they bring back? Well, they bring back all this and more. These ties were significant because at least it brings about a certain level of respect for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. In terms of visa-free access, where we can travel, visa-free. And I've benefited from these because I've been to Brazil, I've been to Argentina, I've been to Kenya, I've been to quite a number of countries where when you got into those countries and they recognize you from St. Kitts Nevis, you went through easily, while others had to conform to whatever requirements there were. But countries such as Kosovo, Brazil, Ukraine, the Maldives, Indonesia, the Seychelles. Oh, I've been to Indonesia too. I'm happy to say that. Seychelles, Bolivia, Sierra Leone, Kenya. I said I went to Kenya before. Zambia, Taiwan, of course, Russia, India, Rwanda, the Gambia, Belarus, all those countries we would have established. Ghana. And in 2019, thereabout, I believe, Serbia, we established diplomatic ties with Serbia. And as I say Serbia, we have students, I believe, who have gone to Serbia, you know, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Yes. Yes, so there are some good things that would have happened under the Honourable Mark Brantley as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I'm stressing on this today because, you see, Mark H. Brantley is one of those names that is being talked about every day, you know. talked about every day. And I look at Mark Brantley as someone who, instead of sitting back and letting things happen to him, he make things happen. He make things happen. And I will say it, and I'll say something controversial before I leave here, but I'll move on. Because, you see, when it comes to leadership, a lot of people out there talking, right? But I can say to you at this point in time, one of the best person to lead the island of Nevis is the Honourable Mark Brantley. And show me another person who you think might be better, and you won't even find one. One of the best leaders right now, and perhaps in time to come, he might go down as one of the best leaders this island have seen. But anyway, those are some of the countries, 34 countries, where we would have established visa-free access under the Honourable Mark Brantley. And, you know, I believe there was some additional countries, maybe over a dozen countries, where visa-free access was actually strengthened so as to ensure that there was a global appeal to the SKN passport. And of course, as a result of all that, St. Kitts Nevis, the passport for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, is ranked number 26th in the world. There are what, about 190 plus countries in the world. And St. Kitts Nevis, the passport of our federation, is ranked number 26th in the world. And of course, in the region, we are ranked number 1. We are ranked number 1. So at least I can say to you that a lot of effort have been placed in ensuring that St. Kitts Nevis, that we are complying with what is required of us throughout the global community. And indeed, we have done what is necessary as well to ensure that all of the due diligence is done, all of the fact-finding is done. But of course, the EU, with the powers that they have, trying to beat up on smaller nations, I believe it behooves us as a small developing nation to come together as a people and stand as one. Stand as a united force. And the day they hear us arguing and bickering against one another here because of politics, it might give them more motivation to say, well, let's move in while they're divided. You know about this talk about divide and rule, the saying, divide and rule? When you're divided, people come in and rule. You don't want to have any division. So, that being said, I want to say that Mark Brantley, in my humble opinion, and I've known the man since sixth form days. That was back in 1980, the late 80s when we went to sixth form. I didn't know him well then, but I've grown to know him even more now, because in sixth form we were more like a competition. Let's see who passed what, who gets what. But anyway, back then until now, I've seen the man grown over the years. And I know I am spending time on Mark Brantley because there's some out there who have a resume of failure. A resume of failure. Everything they touch, they fail. But they seem to be able to talk about successful people and bringing them down, denigrating them, so as to what? Prove what? Prove that they're going to fail just like you? Well, that won't happen to Mark Brantley. It won't happen to me. It won't happen to anybody in the CCM. Because we are a people who believe in making things happen. We don't just sit and watch things happen. We don't wonder what happened. We make things happen. Because we are a people that are about making things happen. And things has happened in terms of the progress of the island of Nevis. So yes, let's talk about leadership. It was not a part of my notes. But you know, I look at the leadership of the NRP. And I know why I'm spending some time on NRP. Because you see the way they're talking as if they have the prescription for everything in this island. And if you have the prescription in your personal life, you should have a prescription for success too. And if I said that you have a resume of failure, I don't know how you could translate or catapult from being a failure into success at 65 or later in your life. All I'm saying to anyone out there is that you look at Mark Brantley, look at the system, look at NRP, look at the leadership of NRP. We heard a lot of confusion coming out of the NRP as of December of 2022. Pure confusion. And I said to the people of Nevis, the day the mistake was made to put NRP into government, you think we would have had this lovely luxury liner sailing the ocean the way it is? And things are so nice here on the island of Nevis? Things are nice in Nevis. It's a challenging time, but notwithstanding their difficulties that we've faced during COVID-19, notwithstanding the challenges with high gas prices, notwithstanding the challenges with supply chain disruption, shortage of certain items, prices are on the high side right now. These are external factors that neither myself, nor the CCM, nor not even you in the NRP can do anything about. Because if I go to my supplier in Miami tomorrow to buy some goods and they say they cost $1, I buy them, yes. By the time I go back to him next week or next month, he said they're $2. What are you going to do? You can leave them there and then you're out of business. You don't have anything to sell. Those prices that you see coming into Nevis, in most cases, are impacted by worldwide situations, the situation that exists in the world. There was all around the world. War in Ukraine, war now in Israel. I'm not going to go into those, but those you must follow to understand why we have high gas prices or fuel prices, high commodity prices as well. There was a point in time when COVID-19 was biting us. Shipment from various parts of the globe were not coming, but when they started coming, the cost of shipment skyrocketed. A container that you used to pay $6,000 for went up to $20,000, and I'm talking US dollars. The question is, who is going to eat that increase? Has to be the consumer. And if we are depending on the government to cushion every burden in this island, then you have to understand, well, at some point, the government certainly cannot sustain that and cannot do it. So there are times when we tell ourselves that conditions are tough. And in tough times, tough people do what is necessary. If you're accustomed to buying 10, you buy 5. If you're accustomed to buying something that is not necessarily needed at that point, well, you leave it until some other time. But we have to do the things that are necessary to keep us afloat. The government has been doing all it can and can certainly say that there have been results out of our actions. There have been results, but back to leadership. We keep hearing about the CCM and leadership, talk about NRP. All I can say is that over the years, you've had some leaderships in the NRP. Starting, well, I can only start back from the day of independence. I'm not going beyond that because a lot of persons who are alive today may not be able to connect with anything before that. But in 1983, of course, there was Dr. Simeon Daniel. He was a member of the NIA, a member of the federal government. Thereafter, he left the federal government. He felt there was nothing more to be done, he gone. Then came the Honourable Joseph Parry. I'm talking NRP now. Then came the Honourable Joseph Parry. By 2000, the year 2000, Joseph Parry said, I'm done with federal government. Just like that. Just walk away. I'm done. Obviously, he was unable to do what he went to Bar State to do. Same thing with Dr. Daniel. Then, of course, the CCM would have had a chance in 2015 to be a part of a federal government. And mark you, I said before that in terms of what was brought here by the NRP out of the federal arrangement, even when they had someone like Patrice Nisbet there, who was there from 2010 until 2015, Patrice Nisbet held the balance of power then. Joseph Parry held the balance of power between 1993 and 1995. Held the balance of power. As a matter of fact, I believe the reason why he decided to call it quits is because he understood that he couldn't achieve anything. But since the CCM would have been in a federal government in St. Kitts, I just spoke about some accomplishments that Mark Brantley would have had as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Patrice was the Minister of Foreign Affairs too, and none of you can come on radio and tell me that he achieved anything close to what the Honourable Mark Brantley would have achieved. Not only that, Mark Brantley would have ensured that Nevisians for the first time were in all sorts of embassies and diplomatic postings throughout the world. In England, in Dubai, in Washington DC, in New York, wherever, we were able to get Nevisians there. But I was speaking about leadership because we can question the leadership of the Honourable Mark Brantley, and even to some extent persons question the Honourable Van Samry, but I'm going to leave that. But let me talk about Mark Brantley, because what he's been able to achieve as the leader of the island of Nevis, and as a member of the federal government, none in the past can speak with authority in that regard. And I want us to have a debate. If we want to have a debate, let us have a debate. Because if one is going to debate, you have to bring the facts and figures to me. And the facts and figures that are presented and can present more, we can have a debate, and then you'll tell me whether the same Joseph Parry who you always talk about, what he did. What did he do? Patrice was not a leader, but of course he was there in the federal government. What did he do? I have said to Patrice this bit in the past, you know, if I was him, I would have tell Dr. Douglas then, give me a check for $10 million. Let me take it over to Van Samry. I not tell him, but I said it on the platform and deposited it in Van Samry's hand and said, that is my contribution to the island of Nevis as a result of being in the federal parliament, in the federal government. That would have been a humongous gesture in terms of what the NRP could have said they brought to the island of Nevis. Instead, what they bring? Some debts. Debts are liabilities. If you want to call it anything of substance, well, so be it. But I'm telling you, $4 million loan to NASPA, whatever other loans, strictly loans, were about cash that have been put to good use in Nevis. And I want to thank the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew for continuing that arrangement that was there prior from the government before, because he understands what it means to work together as a federation. And I want to thank him and his cabinet, because as Nevis go and Sink It go, the federation is much better as a result. And he understands that there's no room for any bickering and any noise. And those of you who intend to make noise and want the CCM to make useless noise over nothing, we're not going to do that. We believe there comes a time in our history when we must be able to work together as a federation. Albeit, that is what is happening now. I don't know about 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 2 years from now. I don't know. But I know for sure at this point in time, we have a goal and opportunity to work together. And once there is respect, mutual respect among both government, I see good things that can happen in this federation. So at this time when we are facing some of our difficult and challenging times, and tumultuous times might be ahead, I want us all to understand that this program, the CBI program, Citizenship by Investment program, is one that we have relied on, one that we continue to rely on, and one that can very well be our savior going into the future. So let us do what is necessary to retool, reshape, reform, re-engage, reset, as the Prime Minister was saying, whatever is necessary. But we have to do what is necessary to comply, to ensure that we can still benefit from this program for years to come. It is a beautiful program. It is a beautiful program. And I want anyone in the the European Union, who are listening to us here in the Federation, understand that this program is what we consider to be our economic savior, so to speak. The day you touch this, you're touching a whole country. The day you touch this, you're touching many countries in the Caribbean. And what do you want us to do as a result? Some may talk about diversification of the economy, but those are discussions we'll have in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, every time I get warm, it's 2 o'clock now, it's time to go. Like they say, I have to pack my bags and run. But it was indeed my pleasure being here, and it is always a pleasure coming here to spend an hour. And for those who are asking for more and asking for calls, yes, I'm asking for the money to pay for that extended period of time because this is what I can afford. That being said, thank you for listening to On Point for today. You can get a repeat of this program on YouTube. That platform, you can get it. It's archived there, and I'll put it on my Facebook as well. But thank you for listening. It was indeed my pleasure. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. Continue to pray for some rain so that we can be blessed around here and the farmers can be happy. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.